Bonsoir, bitches. Are you ready to get transed? Guess who I love? I love trans people. I love some angels. And I especially love the trans angels. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about Anna, Lucifer, Uriel, Sister Joe, and our poorest little meow meow of them all, Castiel. Let's talk about some trans angels. Have I already sworn a minute into this video? For the purposes of this, I'm going to denote falling to mean cutting out their grace and becoming human like Anna does, and rebelling to mean rebelling from heaven's power without cutting their grace out, like Uriel and Lucifer and Sister Joe do. The content warnings for this video are transphobia, homophobia, torture, conversion therapy, sexual abuse, and forced surgical procedures. If there are any others that I have not mentioned, but I remember as I go through this video, I will put them in the description. We're going to talk about Anna first, because she is the first example we see of an angel falling. We've been told about Lucifer, but we haven't actually seen an angel fall until Anna. The character of Anna is introduced as this girl who is in a psych ward. I don't know what they call them. I've never been in one. Let's keep it that way. So she reports hearing voices, but we know them to be signs of the apocalypse. The 66 Seals, Lilith, Dean Winchester, that all point to the main arc of season 4, which is the Seals breaking Lilith, trying to free Lucifer from the cage. Then we find out that not only is she not really a human just with powers, she is actually a fallen angel. So she sets out to restore her grace and become a full-fledged angel again. We get more from Anna in her two first episodes, which are I Know What You Did Last Summer and Heaven and Hell. Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Finally some good fucking food. We get more from her about what the angels are like than we have up to this point so far. We've gotten Cass, we've gotten Uriel, we've gotten allusions to heaven and the grander plan, Lucifer, that kind of thing. When Anna finds out she's an angel, Anna and Dean have this conversation about basically what angels are like, and I shall read it for you. So Dean asks, why would you fall? Can't read it. Oh my god, I need my glasses. Dean says, why would you fall? Why would you want to be one of us humans? Anna, you don't mean that. I don't. A bunch of miserable bastards, eating, crapping, confused, afraid. I don't know. There's loyalty, forgiveness, love, pain, chocolate cake, guilt, sex. Yeah, you got me there. I mean it. Every emotion, Dean, even the bad ones. It's why I fell. It's why I'd give anything not to go back. Anything. Feelings are overrated, if you ask me. Beats being an angel. How's that possible? You guys are powerful and perfect. You don't doubt yourselves or God or anything. Perfect. Like a marble statue. Cold. No choice. Only obedience. Dean, do you know how many angels have actually seen God? Seen his face? All of you? 4 angels. And I'm not one of them. That's it? Then how do you even know there is a God? We have to take it on faith, which we're killed if we don't have. I was stationed on Earth 2,000 years, just watching, silent, invisible, out on the road, sick for home, waiting on orders from an unknowable father I can't begin to understand. While Anna presents these things, the feelings like forgiveness, love, as things that angels can't experience, we know that's not true, because Anna has to have experienced something of an emotion in order to want to be human, in order to, you know, at least jealousy maybe, sympathy probably. She wants to be a human, and she goes about doing it by literally cutting out her grace and falling to earth, where she gets reincarnated as a baby. So it's really interesting that she would get reincarnated. Christians don't believe in reincarnation. So angels are capable of experiencing emotion, and we see from Cass in other episodes where he says things like, I feel doubt, I'm not a hammer. We see in other episodes, specifically season 13, where an angel has sired a Nephilim, made a life with a human woman, and the other angels are like, no, that's not gonna happen. So they kill him, and then they kill the child, thinking that she's a Nephilim. We have seen that basically angels are capable of feeling love, guilt, sadness, forgiveness, all of those things. It's just that they're killed when they express that they feel those things, or if they act on feeling those things. So it comes down to the whole thing, which is like, oh, you can be this way, you just can't act that way. So really, it's quite common in homophobic, transphobic rhetoric for homophobes and transphobes to see that the action of something is worse than the being that thing. Sometimes. Not always. But that is what I'm getting from that. So when Anna chooses to get her grace back, she doesn't immediately go back to the angels, because that would go against everything that she's expressed up to that point. She gets her grace back and then she flees. Her body is destroyed, but the next time we see her, she's in the same visage, she's in the same vessel. And then when Castiel questions her about it, he says, your vessel. And she goes, it was destroyed, but I called in some old favors and I got my vessel back. So we have seen her express emotions, as Castiel says, doorways to doubt. When she becomes an angel again, she doesn't want to just fall in with the flock like she used to, because now that she's experienced humanity and all that humanity has to offer, the good and the bad that she's been through, and I think she's about 22 at this point, it's her choosing who she wants to be, and her choosing that vessel, her choosing, you know, how she presents, her own body, what her body looks like. It's obviously not a one-to-one comparison. Like, none of this is one-to-one comparison. It's just an interpretation that I'm throwing out there because I like it. But Anna literally cutting out her grace, as they say cut, that sounds medical, right? That sounds like a medical transition she's going through to get the body that she wants, to keep the body that she wants. Sounds a bit trans to me, love. She comes back as an angel, but because she's not a part of the garrison anymore, because she doesn't obey heaven anymore, she kind of exists in these two worlds, which are like, she's experiencing all these things that humans experience, although they seem to be subdued. When we see her the first time, when she's scared, she's running, she doesn't really trust anyone, she trusts Dean because she's heard his name, you know, she smiles a lot more, but now that she's an angel, she does seem a lot more cold. Doesn't mean that she doesn't experience things, it may just mean that she can't express them as well. Take that as you will, but she does kind of exist as a celestial being in the human world with her own autonomy. So I do think she is such an interesting character. And the fact that they kill her off, like, after about, what, 5-6 episodes is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. She was one of the most interesting characters, and they just had to get rid of her. Cricky, I'm out for your head. At one point, she even begs Cass to join her, to rebel with her. She says, what you're feeling, it's doubt. I've been there, I know it. And we're so alike. And he says, I am nothing like you. The fact that she has gone through this experience, gone through a transition from angel to human to angel again, and also cut out heaven from her life, means that Cass is disgusted by her. He says, I am nothing like you, and tells her to leave. And it's pretty harsh, but having been so indoctrinated by his family after millennia, and we'll get to Cass in a second, you can kind of understand the things that he's going through, and season 4 is as much about Cass as it is about any other character. He is our focal point and is our introduction into the angels, and we experience the angels through him as much as we do through Dean and Sam. Seeing him with Anna is like, okay, well, this is Anna who's rebelled and who no longer answers to heaven, and this is Cass who's still answering to heaven, but he has his doubts. You know, could be the same process that they go through, which is transing their gender. At the end of the season, Cass does a big no-no and sends Anna back to heaven, gets her captured and sent back to basically a re-education camp, which is, as we see with Cass in a previous episode, akin to conversion therapy, internment camp, concentration camp, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty much the equivalent. The next time we see her after that is in season 5, and she's really not in a good headspace. She wants to kill Sam to stop Lucifer. It's never really made clear whether heaven sent her, because why would they send a messed up angel to do their bidding? But also, how did she get out? And also, why is this the thing she's so bent on if it is her choice? And obviously some of these questions can be answered by the plot, but others just aren't answered at all. And so we're just left feeling like, well, was her reconditioning so extreme that she either started working for heaven again, or did it just mess her up that bad that she doesn't know what's what, and she doesn't really have any control over what she wants to do anymore, which either of those things is really sad, because we saw her as this really like independent, free-thinking, creative and interesting character, only for her to have her personality stripped away from her by heaven's doing, which was, in fact, partly because of Cass. We never get any closure for that, which is unfortunate, because Anna was instrumental in helping Cass rebel. Obviously, he did it for Dean, and he started to feel doubt because of Dean, but also it goes back to angels just have the capacity to feel doubt. They just always had the capacity to feel those kinds of emotions. So that Castiel was feeling them when he was around Dean was not a huge surprise, considering angels are capable of that. So Anna putting forward this example and saying, you know, these are the things that I feel, and this is what I'm doing about them. I'm transing my gender. I'm rebelling from heaven. I'm falling by cutting out my grace. Castiel had that template to go off, that blueprint, but it's never really explored. And considering we'd get the sense that Cass and Anna had such a deep friendship or connection or kinship, Anna was Castiel's superior, and I really do think that her kissing Dean in front of him was not necessarily a goodbye to Dean so much as it was a fuck you to Cass. Cass has been doing this for millennia. He's been falling and rebelling for millennia. It's in his nature. Apparently it's in all of their natures. Well, it is in their nature, in angels' nature, to at least feel, you know. My argument is that the ones who rebel and the ones who fall. So Anna goes back in time to kill Mary and John, and spawning the ever-beloved Anna-Mary ship. Which, if they don't give Anna to Mary in the Winchesters, there will be hell to pay. Give us some more fucking good goddamn sapphic ships, for the love of Christ. Don't even get me started on Genesis. By the time they gave me what I wanted any. Fuck killing you. I'm gonna do a video about you. So stay tuned. Anna goes back in time to kill Mary and John, and fails because Michael steps in, the big brother with the big stick, and he flambés Anna alive? Yeah, that's about as nice as I can put it. He sets her on fire and she burns to death because sapphics really haven't endured enough. Trans people really haven't endured enough. This show has never been good to the queers, to the sapphics, to the trans, to the whatever. Like, they didn't even know that they were writing a trans allegory, and yet here it is. Here it fucking is. 12 years later. So, how is this gender? Let me tell you how it's gender. So if we look at how Anna falls in terms of gender, we can't say that trans people are the only ones who experience gender. Everybody experiences gender. You have a gender just as you have a name, unless you are agender like me, and then you have no gender, but it doesn't mean you don't experience gender. You know, like I experience gender. This is my gender, right? This is my gender presentation. I am presenting a specific gender to you. What is that gender? It's up for interpretation, much like trans headcanons. So everybody experiences gender, whether that's their own gender or society forcing gender on them or specific people forcing gender on them. When people call me woman or girl, that's them forcing gender on me. I'm not a woman or a girl, but to look at me, you might think so. I'm not going to correct you unless I really feel like it, unless I feel like it's a safe space where I can adequately express how annoying it is for someone to just assume they know who I am. But at the same time, it's also like, well, I dress a certain way. I dress femme, and people would say that because I dress femme, that I'm a woman. Doesn't necessarily mean that. It doesn't mean that to me. But I do understand that people look at me and they see a woman, and that's not going to change. They will always look at me and they will always see a woman, because I don't plan on medically transitioning. I don't plan on taking hormones. I don't really plan on altering my body in other ways aside from piercings, tattoos, and hopefully a breast reduction. That's pretty much it. As for gender, that isn't gender to me. That is me. It's not gender. It's just an expression of my personality. And gender can be an expression of your personality. Gender can be an expression of who you are in general. I would say that I do things more along the lines of being a lesbian, being a lipstick lesbian, or a femme lesbian, high femme lesbian, but I don't do things necessarily in a gender way. It's more like I'm expressing my sexuality, but my gender is my sexuality. It's trying to explain what gender is when you don't have a gender is it's kind of impossible, but explaining Anna's gender, I can do that. I can explain Anna's gender to you. So let's keep going. So everybody experiences gender just like everybody, humans and angels, experience emotion. And as we said, emotions are the doorways to doubt. Well, maybe emotions are gender envy to people. You know, maybe emotions to angels are actually expressions of gender envy in humans that lead us to transitioning, experiencing a new gender, experiencing our gender in a different way. In terms of transitioning and being transgender, typically you see it in most cases, especially in previous generations, my generation, even older, like Zillennials, older Gen Z. We basically grew up in a society that did not have room for us, didn't have language for us, and so we had to come up with it ourselves. Although there are certain people who have coined certain terms who do not belong to our community, and maybe it's time we invent new terms so that we don't use the ones that they have used. Basically, wanting to be something is, gender-wise, the first step to being that thing. Say that you perceive yourself to be a cisgender male. Gay, straight, bi, whatever. If you perceive yourself to be a cisgender male, but you have the recurring thought of, I wish I was a girl, or you look at women and you say, I wish I looked like that, or you look at people in dresses and you say, I wish I could wear that. That's a pretty good indication that you want... Oh my god, go away. That's a pretty good indication that you want to do and be those things. Anna looks at humans, says, I want to be human, goes through a medical transition, and then bam, she's human. Babes, it's transing your gender. She transed her gender. Next. Uriel. Oh, my dear sweet Uriel. Gone too soon. Too good for this world, baby. So we get introduced to Uriel as Castiel's muscle, I guess. He is there to exterminate the town that Sam and Dean are in when they're trying to find a witch who is going to break one of the seals and raise... They call him Sam Hain, but my wife says that it's actually pronounced Sown. So I haven't looked that up. I forgot what the episode was when I was writing this, and it just occurred to me right then. I'm not gonna look it up. You look it up. You do it. It's not my job. It's not my business. You're so cute. So what we get from Uriel, especially in this episode, is that he despises humanity and wants to wipe out the town. No, don't put it on the bed. So basically, the thing we see over and over and over again in Supernatural, the one thing that separates the good guys from the bad guys is that the good guys like humans and want to save humans, and don't want to kill humans, and the bad guys want to kill humans and or don't want to save humans. So when we see Uriel, he's like, oh, I just want to wipe this town off the map. Gay rights, honestly, slay. He doesn't like Dean, is the thing. He doesn't like Dean because he doesn't like humans. And he doesn't like Dean because Dean's corrupting Castiel. In the episode On the Head of a Pin, which is the Cast Manifesto episode of season 4, Uriel is killing angels who don't want to rebel with him. So in counterpoint to Anna, who rebelled for herself, we see that Uriel is rebelling in pursuit of power and influence as Lucifer's follower. So Anna gets to think for herself, but Uriel doesn't, and I wonder why. What could possibly be the difference between Anna and Uriel? You tell me. Uriel kills the ones who are saying no to him, and then when Cass says no, that he still serves heaven, and that he doesn't want to serve Lucifer because Lucifer is the bad guy, because he wants to kill people, and Dean is people, and Cass would never kill Dean. Yeah, Uriel's like, see you later, bitch, and tries to kill him. Anna reappears and stabs Uriel through the throat, and bye-bye Uriel. We only get one scene where Uriel explains why he wants to rebel from heaven, why he's transing his gender, and it's framed around wanting to be as powerful as Lucifer. Uriel says, my work is conversion. How long have we waited here? How long have we played this game that by rules that make no sense? Castiel says, it's our father's world, Uriel. Our father. He stopped being that, if he ever was. The moment he created them, humanity, his favorites, this whining, puking lava. Are you trying to convert me? I wanted you to join me, and I still do. With you, we can be powerful enough to raise our brother. Lucifer. You do remember him, how strong he was, how beautiful, and didn't bow to humanity. He was punished for defending us. Now, if you want to believe in something, Cass, believe in him. Lucifer is not God. God isn't God anymore. He doesn't care what we do. I am proof of that. But this, what are you going to do, Uriel? Were you going to kill the whole garrison? I only killed the ones who said no. Others have joined me, Cass. Now please, brother, don't fight me. Help me. Help me spread the word. Help me bring on the apocalypse. All you have to do is be unafraid. For the first time in a long time, I am. You can't win, Uriel. I still serve God. You haven't even met the man. There is no will, no wrath, no God. And Anna says, maybe, or maybe not, but there's still me, and she stabs him through the throat. It's interesting that Bedlin wrote the word conversion. Uriel says that his work is conversion, because I'm going to use that in a different context to denote conversion therapy, which is not what Uriel is doing. Conversion is one word for it. I do think it's just interesting that that's the word that's used. I don't think Ben Edlund really had an idea that in 2022 I would sit here and say he's talking about being trans. So, you know, whatever. But we still get to see a sense of euphoria in Uriel's words and his behavior. He looks to the sky and says, you do remember him, how strong he was, how beautiful, and how he didn't bow to humanity. Uriel is seeing those things in Lucifer and wants to emulate them. And it's also interesting that he uses the word unafraid to mean not have fear, as opposed to a word like brave, which means to have courage. So he's talking about not having something as opposed to having something. I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. Uriel is not trans in the same way as Anna, which is good, because no two people are trans in the same way. It just doesn't happen. He wants to be like Lucifer. He wants to have that power, that prestige, that authority. So rebelling from heaven, transing his gender, gets him that. And it is interesting to note that you know, first-hand accounts will tell you that how you're treated when people perceive you as one gender is completely different to how people treat you when they perceive you as a different gender. So being perceived as basically a hammer, as Uriel was under heaven's rule, and then being perceived as powerful and beautiful and all the other words that he used, like Lucifer, without heaven. I mean, you know, something to think about. He calls humans plumbing on two legs, which, yeah, it's not inaccurate. In this instance, humans are the straight sissies and angels are the trans, and never the twain shall meet. So Uriel is a great fucking character. He's so funny, he's so interesting, and he's trans because he commits the cardinal sin of wanting to kill humans. Uriel Tucker must die. Tucking. There's something in there. Next. Lucifer. Oh, dearest Lucy. I'm only going to talk about seasons 4 to 5 because he gets so, it's just too much. It's just too much. Like, stop it. Stop employing Mark Pellegrino. Just stop it. Lucifer's story is framed in different ways. So we see his story being played out through the eyes of other characters and other characters' perceptions and his own perception, which is a kind of mixed bag, and also whatever story he wants to tell at the time, which is pretty cool in that he has his own agency. So he is the agent in all of this. He's the first angel to ever rebel, to ever question God, to ever say, well, humans ain't shit and I don't want a part of that. He is the pink print for everybody else. So who are we to judge? So his perspective is pretty much, he's misunderstood. He was thrown out for loving God too much and not bowing down to the humans. Whereas for other people, they see him as this murderous, torturous demon, the devil, who tricked Lilith, killed her possibly, tortured her into becoming the first demon, and that's what got him locked up in the cage in the first place. At one point, he turns his mind powers onto Abel, the Abel of Adam and Eve, Abel and Cain. And then Cain is like, hey, wait a minute, don't do that to my brother. I'll kill him and take on the mark of Cain and be your servant. It's a bit unclear because no one in the writer's room in Supernatural actually talk to each other. So there's no continuity between episodes, characters, seasons, etc. They just make the shit up as they go. And you know what? Slay. So again and again, this comes back to murdering humans makes you a bad creature. And we see this with Lucifer, we see it with Amara, Billy, Death, and Chuck. And so it's like, once you say you don't like humans, it's just a slippery slope to wanting to wipe them out entirely. Sure, Jan. So you could, take this metaphor a little bit further and say something like, Anna cutting out her grace is like akin to medically transitioning, whereas Lucifer and Uriel were just, I don't know, socially transitioning, or whatever you want to say. But in the end, it's all transition. It's fine. However you transition, whatever you do with your body is totally fine. Like, I do this to my body all the time. It's fine. I literally got my septum pierced today because I had $50 and was like, what's the quickest way to rid myself of the burden of having $50? Whatever you want to do to your body is fine. However you express your gender and come to be in your gender, and however you feel about your gender is worthy, it's valid, it's perfectly fine. You can't let anybody else tell you what you want to do, because nobody else knows what you want to do. So you just have to figure it out for yourself. And if that means medically transitioning, fucking brilliant. If that means socially transitioning, however that you define that, fucking great, let's do it. If you never want to take hormones, if you want to look like a guy or you want to look like a girl despite not being that way or identifying that way, hopefully people look at me and think, well, they might have a weird gender, and they would then ask me what my pronouns are. I live in a very small seaside town, and no one even knows what non-binary is. I don't think they've ever heard that word before. I don't even think they know how to drive here, so they can't read signs. How are they supposed to read gender signs? So Lucifer is the prime example of what happens when you go against the status quo, and he is also the one who is punished most severely for it. Although Castiel is probably the second most tortured character who rebels, angel who rebels. So Lucifer is trapped in the cage for, well, they never actually say what year it is in relation to like when the universe was created. And they're also like, well, Adam and Eve were created and they gave birth to Cain and Abel, but also Lilith was there somewhere. And Castiel talks about the Neanderthals and their poetry, so it's like, did anyone communicate in the writer's room? Like, did anyone at any point say, this is the story of creation? Because they introduce the biblical Yahweh, but they don't talk about like whether it, yeah, sometimes you just gotta stop thinking, I think. You just gotta interpret it however you interpret it, and like so Lucifer sees humans and sees them as different to him, so places them in the other category, which is fine, go for it. And he also chooses not to place humans, the cis straights, above himself in terms of, the eyes of God. Castiel says, I'm not here to perch on your shoulder, directly refuting a lot of ideas that people have about angels being there to not only serve God, but to serve humanity as well. So Lucifer, in saying, I don't serve humanity, I serve myself, is transing his gender. Let's just put it that way. He is taking control of his autonomy and saying, no, I'm in control of my destiny. I'm my own person. I can do what I want. And he gets thrown in a cage for it. Like, obviously, he does some other stuff. He is like, I don't want to be cis straight, and honestly, love, why would you? Doesn't make sense. I don't think that Lucifer's life and the angels' lives before humanity are really explored, but you know, Lucifer saw humans and was like, thank you, next. So yeah, just to finish this off, I'm gonna draw a parallel between God throwing Lucifer out of the kingdom and parents disowning their children when they come out as trans. I'm just going to draw that parallel. Obviously, that's not what the writers intended, unless they themselves went through that, which I'm not sure any of them did. But, you know, we tell ourselves stories. We tell each other stories. Those stories have been told for millions of years. Let's just keep going. Next. Sister Joe. Sister Joe / NAL. Sister Joe, NAL, Sister Joe, NAL. Oh my god, I hate this character so much. As glad as I am that #1 cast girl Danielle Ackles not only got to be in the show, not only got to have bottomless margarita brunch with Castiel at Quiznos, but she also got to shit all over Dean Winchester. Like, girl, slay. You eat slay for breakfast. Sorry, I couldn't do that. She still makes me so mad. Like, she makes me so mad. I hate this character so much. It's like, first, back in the day, we called Anna in her angel form NAL, and they named Sister Joe NAL. Okay. Second, there is already a character named Joe who Kripke killed because he didn't think the show was going to be renewed past season 5. Hello? Do you not remember Joe? Know your history. Another reason is her relationship with Lucifer is disgusting. It is the most foul thing. Honestly, this show has done some things. It has done some things. And I can think of something that's worse. I can actually think of something that's worse, but this is feral. The way Lucifer would like pin Sister Joe against a wall or a bed and like suck the grace from, siphon her grace from her neck, makes me homicidal. And guess who these scenes were written by? Take a huge fucking steaming guess. On Kripke's doorstep. I wonder. There's actually two more things. She does not matter. There is at no point in the story where her presence actually matters. Like, maybe one, she tells them about Ruby taking the occultum and then they have to find the occultum. It easily could have been written somewhere else. Like, honestly, that is the only time that she is actually useful. Useless character, just absolutely useless. Sorry, I'm still in the Lucifer thing. Like, I don't know why I get so heated. I love Danielle. I'm so glad she's in the show. And I'm so glad she spends all her time with Misha. But it's like she's such a useless character. Like, why introduce this character to have her do nothing? The last reason that also makes me so mad is her girl boss capitalism bullshit, where she takes advantage of disabled people and then calls it giving back. Like, every corporation aimed at disabled people ever? Like, every single corporation? Yeah, like, every fucking corporation that, like, is aimed towards disabled people is really just taking money from disabled people and giving them, us, etc., the worst service you can possibly imagine. And of course, because disabled people typically earn a lot less than non-disabled people and are in oftentimes very bad situations in which we cannot afford any other option, we take what we're given. And because the barrier to entry is so fucking hard for any small business, for any company to get into, there just is no competition. So it's like, if you want this specific equipment, well, there's one company in the world that makes it. Great. Okay, well, I'll take it. It costs $140,000. Yeah, I'll just put that on my credit card then. You know, it's this bullshit. And it's like, this is the thing that Sister Joe is doing. She's like taking money from disabled people by giving them something that they cannot get anywhere else. And like, okay, maybe she's only charging like $300, but that guy was fucking homeless and eating out of goddamn garbage bins. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll take your money and I'll buy a new pair of shoes. Wow, that is girl boss capitalism.
Go off, queen, slay.
That being said, she's a rebellious angel. She loves fashion and money, and her presence in the Michael scene just made Michael seem somehow even more gay than he was before. It's like, Jensen, that's literally your wife. Acting choices, whatever. Like, what is going through your mind, pal? But also, I feel like Sister Joe is like a T for T icon in the same way that that Blair White is a transgender icon, in that, you know, she doesn't give a shit about trans people and will actually shit all over other trans people. And I feel like that's Joe. I feel like all she cares about is just wearing pumps and making her hair look really flowy. Like, I don't think she actually cares about anyone. And in fact, in helping Lucifer, that means she's contributing to not only human genocide, but also angel genocide. So, what's your end goal here, babes? It ain't very clear. Girl boss capitalism wins, I guess. That's pretty much all it is. So, as far as Sister Joe is concerned, we love a genocidal queen. Side note, I'm a huge fan of the transvestigators who say that Jensen and Danielle are T for T. Like, yes. Oh, I hope the transvestigators never stop their absolute delusional batshittery, because it is so personally fulfilling to me. I guess that's it. She's high-key femme and she loves shoes. Next!
Aww.
Castiel, Casito, love of my life, my best friend, my soulmate. So Cass is not the first angel to fall, and I'm using fall in the medical sense, as we see with Anna, who literally cut out her grace, but is in very different circumstances. Cass has his grace taken from him, which is horrible. It's extremely horrible. You could see this as forcing medical transition onto him, the way that historically absolute monsters have done to both intersex and cis people. John William Money, you were absolutely burning in hell, you fucking bitch. You could see it that way. I see it that way. But we do also see that Cass is a trans man. And it's not because he has his grace taken from him. It's because he chooses the life that he wants to live, which is by Dean's side, by Sam's side, as part of the Team Free Will trio. With Jack as well, with Claire. Even before Cass has his grace taken from him, he is tortured by Naomi under the guise of fixing him. And whether it's gay conversion therapy, whether it's trans conversion therapy, whether it's a re-education camp in China, whether it's a concentration camp in Nazi Germany, it's all torture, babes. It's all torture. And it is a human rights abuse. The International Rehabilitation Council for Torture Victims and the Independent Forensic Expert Group have labeled conversion therapy wholly unethical, and that it causes extreme, often unimaginable human suffering. So some of the tactics of conversion therapy, specifically gay and trans conversion therapy, include psychotherapy, electric shock therapy, public exorcisms, emetics, which are medicines that induce vomiting, being told that homosexuality is formed by demons inhabiting the body, and sexual abuse at the hands of people in positions of power and authority. So that all sounds fucking horrible. At least one of these is used on Cass by Naomi. He is tortured with an instrument, a physical instrument, but she also reconditions him into killing Dean thousands of times, possibly more, in order to kill him for real. And then, of course, he can't because he loves Dean too much, and that broke the connection, babes. So one of the questions that cis people watching this might be, well, how do you know they're trans? How can you possibly come to this conclusion that all of these characters are trans? Well, I have a couple answers for that. The first one is because I'm trans and I can do what I want. It's my channel, it's my video. I need content. And I love talking about supernatural. All of these things converge into this one video that you are now watching. So if you are cis and you have made it this far into this video, I do applaud you for giving this weirdness a chance. Like, you either might be questioning yourself, or maybe you just find this interesting. Maybe you're just a supernatural fan and just wanted to watch something else. That's really cool and I really like it, so cheers to you. The second reason why I am making this video and why I headcanon these characters as trans is because everything is up for interpretation. As so many people have said about Castiel's confession, it's all up to interpretation. And you know what? I'm interpreting it as fucking trans. I'm interpreting it as LGBTQ as hell. That is why I like living. The amazing thing about fiction and storytelling and art in general is that you can interpret it however you want. Like, honestly, people being like, oh, it's up to interpretation, it is a cop-out. Like, specifically in the sense of Castiel's confession, it is a cop-out to say that that's up to interpretation. Doesn't mean people have stopped interpreting it though. You could interpret it any which way, but the only correct way to interpret Castiel's confession is that he's gay and trans. That's it. That's all you have to say. With pretty much everything else, you can interpret it however you want. But it's really incredible that, you know, two people can watch exactly the same thing and have completely different readings of it. That is why fiction is so good. Because you can bring your own experiences to your reading of it and they shape how you interpret something. It's amazing, really. Like, your brain, your creativity, your experiences, everything you bring to a reading of a text, to a viewing of a video, to consuming media, to consuming content, that makes up part of you, really. And so everything that we think is an expression of ourselves, and everything we interpret and how we interpret it is also an expression of ourselves. So really, in viewing Cass as trans, I am expressing my gender, and in you watching this video, you are also expressing your gender. I just transed your gender. The third reason is, why would Castiel need to undergo conversion therapy if Naomi didn't think he needed to be converted? Do you need to bring an obedient dog to heal? The dog is already at your side. You don't need to call it. So when Cass rebels in the season 4 finale, he does so because of love and freedom and choice and liberty and all those saving humanity and all those beautiful things that Dean Winchester loves so very much. And Cass sees Dean and says, I want what he has. I want his gender, as we all did as 13-year-olds watching season 1 of Supernatural looking at Jensen Ackles like, yeah, I want his gender, babes. Castiel is not immune to the Dean gender feelings. Sorry. At the end of season 8, Cass is forced to become human against his will, and we see that he's basically pretty much miserable the entire time, until he learns that he can make a difference in the world. Not nuking taquitos, as Dean says, but solving cases, helping people, doing human hunter things, and yeah, so he decides to do that. But of course, it ends really badly for him, because Castiel cannot catch a fucking break at any point in the show. He constantly fucks up in every single way. And it's so frustrating because he tries to do the right thing, he tries to do something on his own for himself, and then it blows up in his face, and the answer is, well, obviously he should have just done what Dean wanted him to do. But it's like, babes, no. If you ever thought that Dean doing something was the right thing to do, that's how you end up rebelling from heaven and getting murdered by Raphael. Like... So don't do what Donnie Dean does. Eventually he gets his grace back, albeit with broken wings. Be the main character of the story is what he chooses to be, and we love him for it. Thank you, little gay trans man. We fucking love you. So in his case, rebelling against heaven means choosing freedom. But in choosing freedom, he also chooses things like what vessel he wants to use. In season 4, he has the choice of possessing Jimmy or possessing Jimmy's daughter Claire. Even though Claire is Castiel's true vessel, as the wiki has pointed out, it's in my mind where it lives rent-free. So Claire is Castiel's true vessel, but instead of choosing to inhabit her, he's like, so I'm getting some DILF vibes from Jimmy Novak, and he goes back to Jimmy because Jimmy is also gay and trans. It's in the text, babe. Straight men don't run off with other men. They stay with their wives who they are in love with, not who they were forced to marry at age 18 because they got pregnant because they were fooling around a bit too much in the hot tub at Bible camp. So while Claire is Castiel's true vessel, he does decide to go back to possessing Jimmy, and in doing so chooses the literal body he wants to be seen in, you know? And who is he seen most by? I wonder, is it possibly someone who has never really had a proper emotional connection with a woman for longer than 3 weeks? Is it possibly a man who spent a year and a half living with a woman and her son and never once said he loved her? Is it possibly someone who he formed a really strong emotional bond with the first time they met, which was in hell? Who knows? Who's to say? Me, I'm to say. And I say yes. So while Castiel doesn't care as much about humanity and probably doesn't even care about Claire at that point that he chooses to inhabit Jimmy again, he, at least not as much as he does at the end of the show, he again chooses how he wants to be seen, what body he wants to be in. Body, meet autonomy. In season 13, Lily Sunder has some regrets. We are introduced to Castiel in a female vessel, so we understand through the vessels and etc., even though they completely fucked it up time and time again, it's like, you can't just hop from one vessel to another. Like, you can't do that. Like, first of all, you need their permission, and second, you have to, like, go through bloodlines? Like, the angels have to go through the bloodlines. Why are they... It's so... annoying. Oh my god, just stick to your own rules. God. Cass is the only one who really doesn't like vessel hop as much as the others do. So when we see him in his female vessel in like a century before the present day, he is in a vessel that looks a lot similar to Jimmy Novak and is probably Jimmy Novak's descendant, ascendant, predecessor. What word am I looking for? Baby, what word am I looking for? Jimmy's ancestor. He chooses that vessel to come down to Earth for like 5 minutes, gets out of there. The angel that he talks to in that episode, Ephraim, I think his name is, hate crimes Cass and says shit like, I prefer your previous vessel, Castiel. Why did you choose this ugly thing? Well, first of all, it's because Dean likes DILFs, okay? So get that straight, Ephraim. It's not all about you. And Cass continuing to inhabit Jimmy's body is just the same as Anna choosing her own vessel and choosing to stay as the vessel that she has lived in, you know, her whole human life. In season 10, Castiel tells Claire that Jimmy is gone, so it's literally just Cass in there. It's just his body. He could choose to ditch out at any moment, but he doesn't. And thank God, because if we had to endure 10 more seasons of this show, at least we had Misha Collins to look at. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I am a lesbian in a very content, happily monogamous relationship. But Misha Collins... Roll the clip. Yeah, let's just roll the clip.
Once you've gotten rid of her, you'll want to stay around?
Well, I like the way you think. Man, am I jazzed. Hey, if it makes you comfy, could call me God.
So the last thing I want to leave you with is the sentiment that has been passed around in fandom since at least November 5th, 2020. I think it probably had its roots somewhere else, but once I joined the fandom in December 2020, I saw it being bandied around then, and I really, really like it. So the sentiment is that Cass chose to be a man. He chose to be a man to fall in love with Dean. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I know for a fact that choosing who I want to be is so much easier now that I have someone who accepts me for everything that I am. At the end of the day, it's about loving others and learning from others loving us how to love ourselves. It's the only thing that matters is love. It's really the only thing that matters. And if you've made it this far, down you are on your bike. I salute you. Now go out and raise some hell.